Hello everybody, here's a pictorial showing the 5-year construction period of the Clear Lake Timber Company Railroad. It all started with these L girders, the basic understructure of the layout. There's a bunch of lumber just waiting to be used for legs, leg braces, and so on. Drilling some holes in the front L girder, which becomes the fascia for turnout controllers. And the benchwork with legs getting installed and their braces. More legs going on. And the semi-completed frameworks there with the legs. There's the corner module, which is square, with its legs being fitted. Then all three modules that make up the layout being put together for the very first time here. Front view and a back view. So bolted together, making everything fit, adjusting the legs and so on. And here's the backdrop structure seen from the rear going up, and the backdrop seen from the front. They're just styrofoam, so they're very light. And the backdrops themselves now being painted, so went inside for that. Just distant tree lines and some clouds. The artist at work here. Beginning installation in the apartment. There's the corner module where it all started. And then the backdrop panels that went on the corner module. And the two side modules put in place with their backdrops. Starting to come together now. Overhead, then there are going to be sky modules, or sky panels. So there they are. Haven't been painted yet. And they just hung on cantilever beams sticking out from the backdrop. There are the sky panels now painted. The lighting fixture taking shape. It's going to have a valance to hide it. Now here is the valance installed to hide all that framework for the lighting. And the back side of the valance showing the light fixtures, and you can see a couple of bulbs screwed in there. Beginning some basic wiring on the framework before it gets covered up with stuff, and so while it was still easy to do. And speaking of wiring, here's the electronics cabinet, where the electronics are held in this cabinet and not attached to the layout framework itself, just to keep it light. Here's plywood being put down on the framework in preparation for laying out the track plan. And then the track plan being worked on here with the turnout templates and building mock-ups, making everything fit right. And also mock-ups in the log camp area. Turnout templates being used again. Getting ready to lay out the final track plan, full size on the plywood. And here it is, laid out full size, so that's where the wood's going to get cut. And the sawmill end with the layout drawn full size. So the part that isn't going to be tracked then got cut away, leaving just the sub roadbed made with the plywood. Because there are elevation changes in the track plan, we have to have these elevation supports, risers. And then the sub roadbed gets elevated on top of those risers, as you see here. And here's all the track up on risers. So you can see the grades as the track ascends from the low level to the higher level. Next is installation of the actual roadbed itself, which is Woodland Scenic's foam bed. So here it is in progress. And then all completed. So all the black stuff is the roadbed. And here's the very first piece of track installed and powered up. It's a turnout, as you can see. Major milestone. Working on the track. A view underneath showing the DCC power bus running along under where the track goes. A typical turnout with its 5 wires attached to it that are needed. And a piece of track showing how they go in with 2 feeder wires attached to a piece of track. Underneath the layout, a busy area with a lot of wiring going on, and a top view of that same area with 4 turnouts. That's why it was busy. The last piece of track for the sawmill area, we're getting ready to go down. And all the track in the sawmill area all installed and powered up. Some scenery landforms beginning to appear. It's just stacked up styrofoam glued together and carved to shape. Trowel fitting some trees just to see how it's going to look. Then the landform smoothed down. And this is the landform that goes at the back of the corner module. The most rearward landform behind the sawmill, behind the log camp area, with scenery layers being installed. The first layer is fine scenery, the second is more coarse. And the same thing at the left end of the layout where the sawmill is going to go, the rearward part, basic initial layer and then more coarse secondary layer of scenery. And the hill back in the corner of the corner module. Intermediate scenery for the corner module. This is the back side of it and the front side. And then that stuff all smoothed out and put in place temporarily. First layer of scenic material going on the intermediate landform at the log camp side. Then the second layer of scenery. Here's some tree production going on, deciduous type trees. And here's tree construction going on for the pine type trees, evergreens. A little bit of the construction showing the green stuff going onto the trunk. And 2 trees being finished up on the left, no flocking, and on the right, with flocking. The pine tree production line. And the very first tree put on the layout permanently. All the background trees now in place, all around the back, next to the backdrop. It's about 200 trees. So here's the corner module intermediate scenery being lifted up into place. It's not heavy since it's just styrofoam. And the same kind of thing for the sawmill area, the intermediate scenery. And there they are in place. Up in the log camp area, got a kitchen going into place here. And the storage shed. And some bunkhouses. Also in the log camp, a crane for loading logs onto the log cars. The corner module with the mock-up of the mine put in place. The front most scenery now being worked. And there it is in front of the log camp with the scenery layers put on it. The engine house being constructed in the log camp. That's one of two engine houses. There it is, coming along. And looking pretty finished here. It has lighting inside, and here's what it looks like at night. And in place with some details put around it. And the back side of the logging engine house. Next we have an engine service facility along with its mock-up. You can see the comparison. The real building ready to be installed. And here it is on the layout. Here's the final turnout going in. It's near the sawmill, and there it is installed. Another major milestone. Here we see all the track except for the trestle at the sawmill in place. Test fitting the structures again around the sawmill. Mostly mock-ups at this point. Sawmill construction is next. Pretty complicated kit. There's all the parts. And there's the powerhouse for the sawmill. The loading shed. The basic main building structure. With some extra detail, flooring and a deck outside. The interior detailing. The trestle for the sawmill, which extends out over the log pond. The main roof assembly for the main building of the sawmill. And there's a saw filer's room on top of that roof, and there it is. The jack slip where the logs are pulled up into the sawmill from the log pond. And finally, all of it kind of put together on the workbench, getting ready to install. And the view from the other side. Test fitting again, a lot of that went on. And there's the trestle and the getting ready to cut out the log pond. And there the log pond has been cut out. And then the bottom of the log pond obviously gets lowered down a little bit, an inch or two, so it has some depth. The bottom of the log pond now put in place, and the shoreline, as it were, going in, and all smoothed out. Next is painting the bottom of the log pond. Scenery detailing going on around it in preparation for pouring the fake water in there, which will be epoxy. Logs being put in place on the bottom of the log pond. Some more painting going on the bottom. Different colors for the deeper areas. The trestle all in place, the track put on and powered up. That was the last piece of track. The log pond ready for the water pour. The trestle again. And the golden spike ceremony, celebrating the last piece of track being installed. And there we have the completed sawmill. And the water has been poured, so you can see it here. Muddy water, as it were. A new electronics cabinet, the second one, for some new electronics that came along. And there that stuff is. It's an easy DCC control system. Complicated area under the layout showing turnout controllers and wiring. The very last tree being installed here. Next we have the mine being constructed. The bin structure. And the bin structure completed. the mine shaft house, and the pieces of the mine put together, checking the fit. All laid in place there on the workbench. And finally, the mine installed on the layout. The next structure is the water tank building that goes up in the log camp. It has a detailed interior, and there it is. And that building put in place. Here's an overview of how it's coming along. Still got mock-ups in the layout, but it's coming along. Next building is a small storage shed for the logging camp. It's made from a boxcar, basically, repurposed as a storage shed. And there it is installed. The next structure is a brewery. And here's its platform with all its detail parts that came with the kit, all painted up. The structural parts of the brewery, ready to start building. And here it is in progress. And pretty much finished, ready to install. And finally in place on the layout next to the sawmill. Another underside view with a close-up of the turnout controllers, those blue things, and the dowel rods that actuate them, where the backdrop wraps around the end. That's one of them there. And there's a view showing no end plate coming around with the backdrop, and then with the end plate backdrop in place. Two more views of that same area without the backdrop coming around, and with the backdrop. At the other end of the layout where the log camp is, a similar thing. The end of the layout without the backdrop coming around, and with the backdrop. The next structure is the Cushing and Bliss machine shop. There we have all the parts laid out. Structure coming together. The main building looking pretty much finished. The little structure in the middle that holds up the water tanks. The whole thing put together, ready to go. The platform it's going to sit on, ready to go with the interior details. And completely finished and installed. Next we have the main engine house at the sawmill end of the layout, basic structure. And its floor with, again, some interior detailing. The engine house installed. And another view of the engine house looking in from the open front doors. Then we have some engine service facility buildings, starting with a sanding facility right here. And the sanding facility installed. Water tank being built. Almost finished. And the water tank all put together. And installed. And a coaling tower all put together, ready to go. And the coaling tower installed. And finally in this series, a little building which I'm taking to be a yard office installed next to the coaling tower. And to look back at those structures right there all clustered together. And we have the logging company headquarters building, which also doubles as a warehouse. And installed on the layout. Kind of a right quarter view and a left quarter view near the sawmill, as you can see. Behind that building is the Barnhart Loader, which is used to pull the logs off of the log cars and dump them into the pond. And there it is again. The layout has an interchange track at the left end, And there it is. However, it's retractable. If it's not needed, it can be lowered down like that. That completed the basic construction of the layout. So here are a few overview photos showing how it's all turned out. Looking in from the log camp end, looking in from the sawmill end, the busy area near the sawmill, and finally a couple of broad overview pictures. Thanks for watching.